welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. Today, we're looking at characters that took a new direction from where they started. I'm Zach Slater.
And Frank Melman.
This is Tommy Smithereens.
And I'm Clifton.
So I wish that there was a more succinct way to put what we were talking about, but I've been struggling with this all week. So essentially, it's characters that were created as one thing, but over time became something else. So I'll kick it off just to sort of like illustrate, I think, what it is we mean. Let's talk Barbara Gordon, right? Okay. So came into the world as Batgirl, and then became Oracle. What was that? 25, 30 years later? Right?
35? When was
35? Okay.
When was the $1 million debut of Batgirl? Isn't that what it is? Was that issue?
Yes.
Right. It was around the 66 series, right? Because that was the thing, is they were going to introduce her for the show, so they introduced her to comics first.
Yes.
Right. And she goes strong as that for, whatever year Killing Joke is. What is that, 88?
Yeah, right. Yep.
Okay, so 88 is when we get the infamous Joker, scenes, and then the character's like has like a brief absence, I want to say, and then she's picked up again in Suicide Squad, where it's Ostrander brings her in as Oracle.
Yeah, Ostrander and Kim Yale are the ones that are credited basically with the idea of for a while it's teased as a mystery. You don't really know who Oracle is. Mm-hmm. And then it's slowly revealed over time that Oracle is indeed, spoiler, Barbara Gordon. At one point you see a stuffed doll that is like a replica of her in her Batgirl costume, as a kind of a tease to the idea of who she is, and then it's revealed. So,
I actually didn't know where the Oracle stuff started. I had never read any of that stuff, so I didn't know how she got there. So that was interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things where she's sort of helping out the squad, and then sort of becomes a member of the squad. And then there's a point where I believe it's Cliff Carmichael, which is a character from, if I remember correctly, from Firestorm that Ostrander also wrote.
Okay.
He becomes the Thinker, and at one point I think he's trying to stalk her, but then he gets out of the squad as well. So it's kind of it's one of those things where Waller sees the potential even in someone awful. And I don't mean potential as they're a good person or they're going to be redeemed. I mean, just she can use them.
Right.
So
they have usefulness too. Yeah.
But Oracle's a part of things after that. So, but then there was a long, the debate, especially when 52 came around, the idea of, her being the most recognizable Batgirl.
Right.
Even though we had, what's her name?
Cassandra.
Well, Cassandra.
Originally it was Betty Kane.
Yeah,
Betty Kane.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Originally it was her, and then but Barbara's being the one that, like you said, with Batman 66, that most people, again, the barometer I always go with my mom. If I asked my mom to try and tell me who Batgirl's real identity is, her secret identity, she would say Barbara Gordon, I think.
Right.
So that's usually my barometer of what the public knows. So, yeah, I it's one of the things where I think she's better as Oracle than Batgirl.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I was
why?
I just think she becomes much more. It's a much more of a niche for her. The idea that she's central to a lot of plots. Oracle's very I'll put it this way. I know when Morrison was doing Justice League or he was doing JLA, Batgirl never got to be part of the. She was guest star in stuff. She'd be there for an issue or something, but there was never a point where Batgirl was on the roster. But Oracle was. And I just think the idea that of the information being the information broker kind of thing, as well as the fact that she had a network, she's got the photographic memory, all that stuff played into the idea of that it used her. I think it used her better than she did. I mean, again, I'm a huge fan of the 70s Batgirl stuff, when she's Congresswoman Babs Gordon too. Right. I like that. I like that era as well. When she was in Batman Family with Dick, when they were basically the dynamite duo and the two of them together. But I think she works. I just think she works. I think that for what, as much as people don't like what happens to her character in Killing Joke, and they think either they thought it was awful that happened to her, or they thought that she was being fridged or whatever. Generally, I think that again, Ostrander and Kim Yale definitely took and made the best out of a bad situation. And I also think the fact that she was, for that community, for people that didn't really see themselves in comics, I think the idea that Oracle could be capable in both Suicide Squad and also in Birds of Prey, was important, because again, we don't get a lot of that with people that are differently abled in comics.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I wasn't really reading comics at the time when Killing Joke came out. And it is more shocking to me now, from a creative standpoint, not just what happens to her, but the fact that the fact that like Barbara always to me seems like such a popular character, right? And there's always like a big demand for like stuff with her, right? She seems to be kind of a box office character to me. So the idea that character would have been allowed, right, to go down this dark path where we're going to have this like finality to what happens to her, right, is just interesting to me, just because, I mean, just being a comic fan for as long as I've been now, even though I wasn't reading at the time, but just kind of like you hear sort of these things come up once in a while where like the idea is when somebody really gets the chance to like take a big swing on a character, it's usually when the company's kind of like, we don't have any plans for that character. Go on, do whatever you want. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it just kind of seems, and so just thinking that, like, I'm just sort of like pegging that into, DC at the time when Killing Joke came out. They're just sort of like, we don't really have a whole lot for her, maybe, I guess, which is why they let him do like this ghastly thing to her.
Well, I mean, Moore's always been, I think he's always maintained like he didn't think that it was going to be a thing that would stick, which again, I think is weird, because why wouldn't it?
Right. But I've seen stuff where he said that, where he kind of thought he was just writing like this out of continuity story, just that he thought was a good story for Batman and Joker, and that he's been as surprised as anyone that now 30 years after that, or however long it's been after that, that all that stuff is still in play. Like, he'd be the most shocked at that, I think.
Yeah. He was definitely he's always maintained at least that he thought, it wasn't going to be something beyond that. And then now it's been something that they, again, they didn't shy away from, strangely enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it has stuck around even still, like even when New 52 came out and she was, suddenly Batgirl again. Right. And was, walking, that was still part of like her backstory though, was like the Killing Joke did happen.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting to me. I'm like, that the fact that they're still saying it happened, even though they're like kind of scrubbing it clean.
Well, I mean, it was one of those things before New 52. There was a story that in Birds of Prey that was written by Gail Simone that had a moment where I can't remember if it was some kind of conscious. I think it might have been Brainiac, but anyway, the story ends with, Barbara in the hospital, and she's able to like wiggle her toes. And so it's like one of those things of like, what, it's hard to tell whether Gail was going to take in the direction of that she was going to go through the process of trying to walk again.
Right.
And then when New 52 happens, she's immediately back to being Batgirl again. So, I didn't read enough of Gail's.
And that was Gail's book, because Gail started Batgirl as soon as New 52 had started.
Right. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it was the plan that was like we basically see the backstory of what happened to get her to that point.
Mm.
But, again, that was what was, she was at least teasing at that point. So was that she might be on the road to that. Yeah, I agree with you. It is one of those things where it is for a character that's so, we're only talking a couple of years removed from Watchmen when Killing Joke comes out. So the idea that DC was shying away from more realism, quote unquote, in their books, is not unheard of for the time, because that's what they were into. But again, the idea that it stuck so long, or that a Crisis or a 0 Hour or one of those type things didn't reset it, because 0 Hour has Barbara Gordon as Batgirl in it, but it's kind of a Batgirl out of time. And it's Barbara, but it's she's basically out of time, as opposed to being her. I think even Oracle or Barbara Gordon sees herself as Batgirl again.
Mm.
So
this is one where like I don't really have a preference. Like I like her as Batgirl, and I love you know, like Batgirl Year One, and you know, the stuff from the animated series, and even like the Burnside stuff that came out, you know, into whatever that was that DCU YOU, right era. Like I like all that stuff, but like I love like the 90s, like Birds of Prey, and you know, when she would pop up in Detective and in Nightwing and stuff like that. So like, you know, this is she's just an awesome character for me, I think. You know, and I think in the hands of certain writers, she works great in both situations. But so yeah, so I'll throw it out to you guys. You know, we'll bring up a couple more. The Bat family's full of I think versions, you know, similar to this, where they come in as one thing and you end up being something else. But you know, I'll toss it out to you guys. So who else do you have?
The glaring one that I thought of, well, to start off, was Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
In which she was, in which initially she came aboard on Batman the Animated Series, right? In which she was a bodyguard or a foil or a henchman to Joker. To see her change from that over the years, to me, is incredible for such a small character that had, you know, a small role to play in a TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Like the eclipsing of the character and the involvement of the character, or the evolution of the character, has surpassed many established characters that have been there for like 50 years, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like she's, you know, the star of her own animated series that, you know, features her name, and like there's no Wonder Woman animated series yet.
Yeah,
surprisingly, right? Like,
right. Strangely enough, yes.
Yeah, and they're clamoring for another season at that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and has had her own film.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Harley Quinn's popularity never ceases to amaze me, because there is a moment where I thought we were getting close to the oversaturation. Like, people are going to get sick of her. She's kind of everywhere. And it's like, nope. Like, apparently, like you could put as much Harley Quinn stuff out there as you want.
Yeah.
And people love it. People eat it up. And, you know, and I'm happy for that, because I do like the show a lot, you know, and I like Margot Robbie's great, as, you know, we said in our Suicide Squad review, and other things. Like, you know, she's a fun character, and has not as one note as you would think.
No.
Right?
I like the fact that they keep coming back to her being a doctor.
My thing about her is the idea that she, again, it's one of those things where, you know, she starts out as sort of like a, you know, I think it's the evolution of the character. The fact that at one point she's pretty much a punching bag for the Joker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she evolves into, you know, her own thing, even to the point of like, you know, even the comics just kind of like changing basically her reason for being almost.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the idea that she started one thing and then she's become another, and you know, and then it's just like you said, the idea that she went from being, you know, an addition or a side character or a gangster's mall, for lack of a better term,
right,
to basically being what she is now. Where I'm not saying she's more popular than the Joker, but she's probably on par, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. In such a in such a small amount of time. I mean, I think the first debut of her was in '92, the Batman animated series Joker's Favor, and then 7 years later, she is main canon in the comic books, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Which I think people forget where she popped in. But it's like, she comes in the middle of no man's land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like during that event, which is just hilarious to me thinking back to it. Cause it's like, of all the places, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It is kind of an odd spot, but still.
Yeah.
And it took 7 years to get her in the comics.
Yeah. 7 years.
Did.
That seems actually kind of long. I feel like now,
right?
Now they do it faster than that, but.
Well, they did do the one shot 2 years later on, I think, Mad Love, but actually putting her in the continuity.
Right. That was still animation continuity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's in like the Batman, was it Batman Adventures comic? She's in that. That's like her first appearance in actual comics. Well, there's that, and there's like a magazine where they previewed the animated series, and people like that's like their first appearance, like just a shot, like, you know, a sketch or a drawing of her, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. but I'm forgetting exactly where it is in No Man's Land, but there was like a one shot that came out at the time that Dini had done with it's got like the Alex Ross cover of like Joker in the black tie tuxedo and he's dancing with her, everybody's seen on posters and stuff, reprint trades like a million times at this point.
Right.
Like,
yeah. I think that was what, Batman Harley Quinn?
I think that's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Tango with Evil by Alex Ross.
It's a good story though. But yeah, no, she's a good one. She's and I'm still waiting for the Thelma and Louise Harley Quinn Poison Ivy movie. Just do it already. My God.
Right. It's coming. They got to figure it out.
At least they're trying to figure it out.
Right. I was going to say I'm sure there's someone is somewhere furiously figuring out how they're going to do it.
Well, the thing is, the thing that makes it unique to me is Harley Quinn fills in that role that they thought Batgirl would fill in.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
Teenage girls love Harley Quinn.
True.
And then to me, you would think that would be the crowd that goes for a Batgirl. But for some reason, she pops more. Well, for a lot of reasons, but me being not a teenage girl don't seem to understand clearly. So.
Right.
But now she's definitely turned into an icon over the years.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Frank, Clifton, you guys got somebody else?
I mean, drifting away from Batman, but still, I think staying in the spirit of Harley Quinn, I'd go to Marvel with Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
That Deadpool's introduction was a straight villain, like a complete ripoff of Deathstroke.
Yes.
Straight down to the name. Deadpool, Deathstroke, Wade Wilson, Slade Wilson.
Yeah.
Like it was just Liefeld, and I guess it's also credited Fabian Nicieza is also the other credited creator, I think, with Rob Liefeld, if I remember right.
Yep. Sounds about right.
That they were just doing, they were coming up with a villain for their X-Force that was coming out at the time, and it was a pretty straight assassin-ish character, heavily on by an existing one at DC that they had both probably worked on. I know Rob Liefeld had worked on DC on Hawk and Dove for a time before going to Marvel. And then it just evolved, over time into the Deadpool we know now, like the fourth wall breaking anti-hero, similar to Harley Quinn, where it went from more something along the normal lines of a villain to the anti-hero, to like bridging that line of like, yeah, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes the middle. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like it's definitely like Deadpool's one that I think did change a lot. It did happen fairly early, I think. I don't remember for sure because I wasn't reading a lot of that Deadpool stuff. But
yeah, when he first shows up, he doesn't, there's definitely no fourth walling. There's no goofing around. There's none of that. You have that, and then you have a miniseries by Mark Waid, I believe is the one who wrote it, like a 4-issue mini that he wrote that introduces like, is it Copycat? Is that the girl? What's like a shape changer that he's with or into or something,
right?
And I think I can't remember who all is in it, but it's basically like that. It's a very straightforward, action kind of Merc thing, and he doesn't become the Merc with a mouth until Joe Kelly does the series, and that one's totally, that's the series that basically defines who he is, ever since then, basically.
Yeah,
those books are the ones that it's Joe Kelly and I want to say Ed McGuinness, I think is who it was. They do that book together and define,
He had a couple of minis, like you were saying. He had at least one or two like 4-issue minis that I remember, and then got his ongoing, somewhere around it was either after one or two minis or something like that. And that ongoing went on for a long time, I remember. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so do you guys recall how long he was just sort of like the plain Jane, just sort of like, mercenary before I guess like he got a personality? Because I remember for me, I remember just being like in junior high and stuff like that there was a popularity of the character just, and I want to say it's the visual. I just think like he just had like an arresting look, like it was a cool costume and he looked neat. And I remember like we were all clamoring for like the Marvel Masterpieces, card of his and everything. But
the character came out in New Mutants 98 in February 1991. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it wasn't till I want to say 97 when he got his own title that he really blew up.
Okay.
And you're right, Frank. It was Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness.
Gotcha.
And so, note from our engineer: Deadpool 28 from '97 was the first fourth wall break.
Okay.
Okay.
With the character, yeah. So 97 ish is when he got a personality.
So Joe Kelly was responsible. Joe Kelly was responsible for that change.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't read it often, but when I read it, I remember enjoying it quite a bit. And there's a pretty good issue where it's like a time travel issue where Deadpool time travels back into an actual issue. I think of Amazing Spider-Man. That's pretty funny, where it's like panel per panel done with him in it, and then Deadpool's. I don't think if I don't remember correctly, if he knows what's going. Like he knows who Spider-Man or Peter Parker is, but he's basically playing off the cast.
Okay.
Which is like a standout issue. So
they just like reprinted an old issue and put him in there.
I believe.
Is that what it is? Is it like that Tribble episode of Deep Space Nine?
Kind of, yes. Kind of, okay. Yeah.
He's like Forrest Gumped into it.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
Yep, basically.
I think the thing that sticks out for me for Deadpool a lot, that I think a lot of people forget because he's so immensely popular again, was that there was a point where that character, like they weren't doing anything with him. Like he wasn't popular. Like people, I think, had kind of forgotten about him, and it's funny to say, but Clifton, we talk about it. It's like X-Men Origins, the Wolverine movie, the first one that brings him in. Is kind of like your moment of when people were like, "Oh, right, this character did exist, and he was fun." As bad as the adaptation got for that character in that movie, ultimately at the end, it's still kind of responsible for like this huge resurgence that we got with the character.
Yeah, which one was that? Like 2009 was the year on that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's right.
It was because I remember it was writer's strike. It was the writer's strike year, and I was like, maybe this is the reason. Like,
maybe you can attribute it to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe writers are important.
Right.
But no, it is funny because working at a comic shop at the time, like I definitely do remember a lot of people coming in to buy Deadpool stuff around the time of that movie, and I was like, he's terrible in the movie. Like the movie does nothing good with him.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, like there was enough of a seed in there that got people interested, and then ultimately had payoff later when Ryan Reynolds got to make the movie all these people wanted.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and like more than anything outside of the MCU is the thing that's like overwhelmingly like, you got to do something with Ryan Reynolds. Like,
Right.
keep that. Right? Like, you got to keep that, Feige. Like, you know what I mean? So, which I think is just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was pushing. Then Ryan Reynolds is also, championing that for a long time, that he wanted it to be, Deadpool and wanted to do something. And I think he did that one shot with him in the full costume, and that was pretty much what sealed the deal.
The one that's like him on the bearskin rug or something, right?
I don't know for sure, but I just know that he was, for a long time, he was trying to get that off the ground. What were you gonna say, Tommy?
I was gonna say, was that leaked test footage,
right?
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, people got a taste of that and like, oh my god, this is what we could have had.
Right.
So all right. So who hasn't gone yet? Frank,
I haven't gone yet.
Right?
No, I haven't gone.
Throw someone out.
So I'm gonna go with Lobo.
Okay.
Okay.
Lobo's one of the ones.
I'm not familiar with this one, so explain, please.
So Lobo first appears in Omega Man #3.
Yes.
And he looks kind of more like a clown in a leotard.
He looks like a wrestler.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
He actually kind of looks like a humanoid version of Thing 1 or Thing 2, actually, from Dr. Seuss.
Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see it, yeah, he's
you'll see.
Except the colors are yellow and purple, if I'm not mistaken.
Or like orange and purple.
Orange and purple. There it is.
Yes. So it's one of those things where no joke. He's basically got this. It rides like he sort of rides a version of a space motorcycle, kind of like he does later. But it's more of like it's Giffen does the issue. Keith Giffen does the art on it. And it looks like, it's typical Keith Giffen, like Legionist art, which is not a bad thing. I love that stuff. But it's definitely not the This Ain't Your Daddy's DC Comics fanboy, biker, biker in space
right.
kind of a thing. Or even like the Lobo that we get that's still that kind of version in Giffen and DeMatteis's Justice League, where he's like the really, hardcore biker in space but has a soft spot for space dolphins. Like that's part of his, that's the part of the thing they think they bring in.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just starts off as, granted he's intergalactic, mercenary or bounty hunter in his first appearance, but like if you ask someone what's Lobo, right? They're not going to go with this, he's got purple hair, like in this, when you see the image, we'll put the image up when we put the episode up. He just doesn't look like that at all. And I think it's not until Giffen does I'm pretty sure it's Giffen, does the Simon Bisley books, like the miniseries. Like we get, like he's, obviously in the 90s, Lobo was pretty popular too. He's one of those 90s characters that took off and had a bunch of like, there's Lobo and Lobo Paramilitary Christmas and, like Lobo, there's one where Lobo goes to hell and heaven. There's one where like the first miniseries where he finds out that, part of Lobo's origin is the fact that he's so ornery and so mean that he wiped out the rest of his planet because he wanted to be the only person left.
Right.
And then he finds out that no, he missed somebody. So then he has to go after them. But I mean, they're fun. I mean, they're over the top. They're
He
highly
does look
violent.
like a Dr. Seuss character,
Right?
I just Google yeah, he does.
Right? Doesn't he
I've
totally
never
look like?
seen this before. This is weird.
Yeah, I know. It's not what you expect, and it's just one. Again, I guess they just hadn't quite gotten, because Ron's what's his name? Silver is the guy, the writer of Omega Men, Roger Silver. I almost said Ron. Roger Silver and Keith Giffen are credited with Lobo, right? So it's one of those things where, and Roger Silver wrote, I believe, most of Omega Men, if not all of it. But yeah, it's again, when you think about that look versus, the cigar smoking, again, biker in space that Jason Momoa should have played.
Yes.
And still should, even now that he's playing Aquaman. Still should.
In his own clothes. Like as we were joking, we were like, you wouldn't even need wardrobe with him. Just have him come in dressed in his own clothes. And you're like, you're good to go.
He can just roll up and they can be like, action. Just splash him with white paint and go action. Give him some red contacts. You're done. But yeah, it's interesting to me that, because his first appearance is in June of '83. And I would say probably, when's the first Lobo miniseries? Let me see. 1990, 7 years later. He is it's that Bisley cover with his face and he's biting his lip and drawing blood.
Right.
That's the first one. And then he's sort of, like I said, he makes some appearances in Justice League, the Giffen DeMatteis run, and then he's in the Legion, the acronym one,
right?
The modern quote unquote Legion at the time.
When I was Googling this for the original look, I also tripped over the New 52 Lobo, which I had forgotten about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they tried.
To remember when it was handsome Lobo, we'll call it. Right?
Yes.
Like it was,
yes, they tried.
It was Lobo with cheekbones and like Leonardo DiCaprio, like from Titanic, like tousled hair.
Yeah, they tried to gussy him up. And that didn't quite work. So
no, I've forgotten all about that. But seeing it now, I'm like, no, everybody hated that.
Yeah, yeah, that was not a smart move. I mean, again, it's one of those things where, I'm not saying go back to the thing 1 and thing 2 look either, but at the same time, Lobo works the way Lobo works because, that's the character. That's what it evolved into. And I think that's the one that really resonated with people, right?
Yeah.
But what's crazy is I was doing a little research on that character as well. They said it's supposed to be a parody, which it made fun of the Punisher and Wolverine, and it just took off.
I could see that, but it's not, in a way, I guess. I mean, it's not like Lobo has a code. I mean, he's
not at all.
That's not his thing. It's not like there's a code involved. It just sort of does this. He gets hired for stuff and does it, and then you hope he doesn't come after you for some reason. So
yeah, but I feel it's a parody of Wolverine in the '90s, where I'm the best there is. What I do and what I do ain't good. That
right.
Dirty talking Wolverine that always stands people off and just knows he can beat you no matter who he's up against in the fight. I could definitely see them making fun of Wolverine with that character at that point.
Right. And he's got the cigar and everything.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah. The cigar.
But that's also, again, the
the
point where
arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also the part where, again, the whole fanboy thing, I think, is where, the derision with the term begins.
Yeah, it does at that time.
There was those spots for DC Comics in the 90s that you could see, they're probably on YouTube. We can find that. Where, these ain't your daddy's comics, fanboy, Lobo's the only anime, like they give you quick shots of all the books at the time. But, if you had your local comic shop in the 90s, you probably saw that commercial.
Yeah. It would run on your local cable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, probably during syndicated Superboy or Swamp Thing or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Lobo's the one that I like. I always, when I think back on that ridiculous purple and orange costume, I'm like, wow. Don't let anybody else see you. It's almost like an embarrassing high school yearbook photo.
Yeah, that was a new one for me. I had not seen that before.
Okay.
But I remember when Keith Giffen used them, at least my introduction to him was in Justice League International.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how they introduced him there. Oh my gosh. It was nice. It was just a nice character moment. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Maguire drew the issue.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the ones with Guy not having Guy gets back in the day when Guy Gardner would, the old sitcom trope of getting hit in the head would change his personality. And he was kind of demure at that point when Lobo first shows up, and then the greatest is the rematch. Do you remember that, Tommy?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
When basically he's actually Guy Gardner at that point. So
yeah, what's nice on the cover is, it's like a two-parter. In the first cover, you have Lobo like in the face of Guy Gardner, and Guy Gardner whimpers out.
Yeah,
and then in the second, like a shrinking violet to Lobo's.
Yeah,
and
he's in his face. Yep.
Yeah, and then in the second cover, part 2, you have him in Lobo's face saying, "I'm back," with that childish, immature grin on his face, like he's about to start a fight. The typical Guy Gardner bravado, and I don't give a damn. I'm gonna stuff your words down your throat.
Yep.
Yeah, it was nice. Definitely nice.
Good word with demure, by the way. That's one you don't encounter every day. I was just like, wow. Good one.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. I have one that may be a little controversial. So you tell me what you guys think. Admittedly, some of this I think is just my own like criticism and observations, but I think that there's something there. So I'm going to blurt them out. Darth Vader.
Okay.
All right. I want to hear the change. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My sense of it. Star Wars 77, A New Hope. My sense of it is that he's just intended to be the heavy. Right?
Okay.
Right.
I don't think that Lucas had any plan for Vader being Luke's dad when that movie was made.
Right.
Okay.
And one of the things that I will refer to is I remember hearing Giancarlo Volpe in one of his podcasts, Big Pull podcasts back in the day. He's he's one of the showrunners of Green Lantern the animated series and director on Avatar and Dragon Prince.
Right.
He had worked on Star Wars The Clone Wars, so he had a relationship with Lucasfilm and is a big Star Wars nut. And I recall him hearing things about where like Lucas at some point kind of started falling in love with this like fallen knight idea, right? That sort of changed the direction of where he thought where the Vader character was going to go, right? Do you recall this, Clifton? You remember this?
It sounds a little familiar.
Okay. So I'm just curious what you guys think about that. Because like to me, looking at just the progression of story in the original trilogy, it seems to me very likely that A New Hope comes out and he has not yet made that decision where he's like, oh yeah. He's going to he's Luke's dad all along.
Right.
You know?
My only disagreement is, and when I found out about it later in life, is his name,
right?
Which is what, Dark Father in German,
right?
So I mean, again, they could just make the origin as a result of the cool name, so it doesn't really mean anything. But with that name, it sort of leans heavier towards a bigger or a more definitive future as far as what they're trying to tell with the character. That's my only thing against it.
Okay.
Because some people that knew German, it's not.
It's a good rebuttal, though. Right. You got me there.
Yeah.
Right. Father in German is VATER, so it's close. It's pretty much what they were going for.
It's close. Yeah. That's my only thing.
But no, I think, I mean, a lot of the stuff clearly was evolving along the way. And I don't think anyone involved is trying to hide that. Like anyone in the creation of Star Wars is not trying to say otherwise, because like the Luke Leia kiss clearly was not done with a further plan in mind at that point in time, I don't think. And the Vader stuff, like I lean both ways. Like I feel like it probably wasn't the plan all along, but he did have the name. Like I don't know if he just had the name Vader because he thought it sounded cool. I don't know, it's possible either way. It's possible either way. But there are things that change, like the Force evolves between the movies, because in the first one, the only expression of the Force is we do see Vader choke somebody. Right. And then apart from that, it's some mind tricks.
The mind trick.
That Obi-Wan does the mind trick, and then it's Luke meditating to make the Death Star shot. Basically, he's using the Force to make the shot as opposed to relying on the targeting system. And then by the next one, you get like the moving stuff, like all the telekinesis stuff that wasn't there the first time. Like the we see it in the Wampa cave that
the saber.
Yeah, Luke's able to pull the saber to him with his mind, and then the final battle, they're just throwing stuff all over the place with the Force. So there's clearly stuff that was evolving in those movies. So I do think there's a very good case that was too.
I was gonna say I didn't think about that, Clifton, because it's not like if Obi-Wan could do the telekinesis thing, why do you have to go over the bridge to turn the switch?
Right.
Yeah. No, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
It was something I recall Rian Johnson when he was talking about Last Jedi saying that he wanted to introduce a new Force power because it was like there's a new Force power in like every movie. At that point, which I was like, oh, that's it. And it's one of those things where like I hadn't really like thought about it in that way, but it's true. I mean, like, you don't see anything levitated until Empire.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I didn't catch that always is new is when Rogue One came out and they were showing their shore troopers, they were called. They were like the khaki, like the tan and khaki stormtroopers. And my first reaction was like, I don't like, do we need more? And then I was like, oh wait, like every movie literally does have a new stormtrooper. Like every movie had, because we got the Hoths, we got the snow troopers, and then we got the biker scouts, and then
No, you're right.
That's a thing too. Like every movie has new stormtroopers. So then I was fine with it. I like the shore troopers after that.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that too with the electric powers in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
you're right. It does. Jeez. Huh.
But so back to Darth Vader though. So there are clearly aspects of him I do think changed along the way, because he did seem like a little bit of a lapdog in Star Wars when you think about it. Like we have the later information that shapes our views on him. But if you're only watching
Star Wars
A New Hope and nothing else, and you've got no knowledge of anything else, then he's kind of like a lapdog. Like he's under the control of Grand Moff Tarkin even. And like the other, he stands up for himself, but like the other Imperial officers are like scoffing at his religion. Until he puts them in their place. But like even then, like Grand Moff Tarkin's like, okay, calm down.
Yeah, exactly. Tarkin definitely seems more like the guy calling the shots.
Yeah.
In that movie. Right. And yeah, of course, Vader is definitely somebody formidable even then, but I think it's evolved and not, not saying it as like a gotcha thing. It just, it's just I just think that that's one of the cool aspects of Star Wars that I think gets lost a little bit, is that there was kind of like a little bit of like this jazz quality. We're kind of making it up as we go, right? And it wasn't this huge necessarily like, you know, I made this thing and I knew all along that this was going to be episode 4 and this was right, and then I had these other 3, right? It's just sort of like that stuff comes along as like the longer he plays and has been with the characters,
right? Yeah,
you know, yeah.
Now, so you inadvertently introduced 3.
What do you mean?
Vader, the Force, involved, and Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
And kind of Leia a little bit too.
And Leia. No, and Leia. Yeah.
So all right. Who else is out there?
Can I divert a little bit away from comics and sci-fi?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
For lack of my thinking, Family Matters. The show on ABC. Yeah.
Never heard of it.
How'd you beat Zach to that?
Yeah, I know, right? So, initially, it was a Cosby Show rip, right? Initially.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know, we get Winslow immediately after
Blue Collar Cosbys.
Yes.
was initially supposed to be the concept,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Relatable. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And after Die Hard is what you're saying.
And after, thank you. After Die Hard. Wow, for life, I couldn't think of Die Hard. Okay. Right. But as it evolved, and this one character jumps on the show, Urkel, who was supposed to be in just one episode. And then by the 3rd season, it becomes the Urkel Show.
Yeah.
Changes the whole trajectory.
Yes, they eliminate extraneous family members.
Yes, they do.
Yes,
often
we get and Urkel only becomes more prominent. He goes from supporting cast to being what the reason he takes over the whole intro basically.
Yeah, you're making me think of the awesome Key and Peele sketch.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Key and Peele sketch.
No, bring it up. Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but isn't it Reginald Val Johnson's like reaction to Urkel taking over the show? Isn't that what the skit is about?
Yes.
It is so Peele, Jordan Peele plays Reginald Val Johnson, and he's like talking to like one of the show's like he's one of the show's producers or like an agent or something, and then he's like what? It is not safe for work. So we will post this skit on letmeknowhowitis.com. But please do not watch this at work without headphones, because there's a lot of F-bombs in this, but it is fantastic. I love this sketch. But I think but I mean, like, Urkel does have an arc, I think. And it happens, I believe, after the show was starting to come down in ratings and everything, and people were not watching it as much, and I think it might have even moved networks. And there's a lot that people miss, but Urkel and Laura end up being together.
What?
Yeah, he gets.
And I'm not talking Stefan Urkel. I'm talking right. Urkel. Like, that doesn't count in anything I'm saying. But like, Urkel starts to evolve over time. And you can see it like very, very subtly in his clothing. Where like he's still like a nerd, but like he's like the suspenders stop coming, and he's not wearing like those 2-tone shoes anymore and stuff.
Yes. Longer
khakis.
Yeah, he's more fashionable. No emphasis on high waters.
Yeah.
I'd argue say he's the only one that gets a solid arc. No one else really does.
And he's got a decent one for the last season, but you're right though, with like family members like disappearing, because a lot of people think Judy, like the middle sister or the youngest sister, like goes away, but like Aunt Rachel vanishes after that.
Yeah.
And like,
yes.
I mean, yeah, it's a few people that start. Mother Winslow, I think, is gone by the end of it too. Like, yeah.
All to ensure that the new character gets his shine, or can't get enough Urkel.
I'll throw another TV one at you though, like that's very much along the same lines as Urkel. I think is Jesse Pinkman.
I was gonna say him. He was on my list.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
Because he was another one supposed to be killed off after one episode, right?
Yes.
And just sort of like the charisma of the actor, or just something about Aaron Paul and the way he played it, and you know, I don't know exactly what the story was, but it just like, you know, they saw something there.
I think it has to do with the writer's strike as well. That was part of it too. I mean, they liked him and they liked having him around, but I think it was one of the things where he was only supposed to be around for, I think, the first 6, and then, but another one of those, you know, and then because of the writer's strike, they either kept him around or extended his story to fill until they were going to pick up the story back up again, and then, you know, then it became what it was. Mm-hmm. But there's a similar situation, Tommy, with Walton Goggins, right?
Yes.
With his character Boyd Crowder on Justified, where he was supposed to die.
Yeah. He's supposed to die at the end of the first episode on Fire in the Hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they ended up not. I think it was the same thing where they ended up not killing him, and then, you know, he's throughout most of that series. So.
Yeah. No, and it reminds me of another one, just as Spike.
Yeah.
From Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, he turns from popular villain to must-have anti-hero at the end of Angel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well,
I forgot all about him. Yeah.
Again, now that we're doing them rapid fire, the other one that I thought for sure you were going to bring up, Tommy, that you didn't, Wesley Wyndham-Pryce.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I love his character arc.
We've talked about Alexei Denisov. You know, his character is one. I still maintain his character's arc is one of the best character arcs in all of television. That he starts off as the foppish, you know, Wesley Wyndham-Pryce, who's sort of like a watcher,
best boy.
Yeah, the head boy.
Head boy. There it is.
Yes, at the Watchers Council, and he sort of comes in when Giles doesn't follow orders. You know, or no, he comes in because of Faith, right? He's Faith's first watcher.
He's Faith's first watcher. Yes.
Right. Anyway, and then it's one of the things where he evolves from being sort of like this, you know, comedic character from in Buffy to showing back up on Angel, and his character, you know, again the transformation that he goes through from what he first starts off as, you know, is just awesome.
Yeah, even when he comes on the Angel, the first episode from Buffy, he becomes a fake vampire hunter.
Yes,
but Enemy's arc, he really is one. He doesn't have to fake it. He literally turns into the Marlboro Man at the end. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw Baxter Stockman out for this too.
Okay.
From Turtles.
From Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Because one change was like he was created in the comics in the original Mirage comics. So he first appears in Ninja Turtles #2. So he's early. He's very early in 84.
Okay.
And he's a scientist and he's black. And then the cartoon comes along in the 80s and Baxter Stockman is in like the first season and he's a white guy.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So that's one change that's just sort of like looking when you are a fan of the comics, you're like, huh, that's interesting. But the other thing that the 80s series did was that he doesn't have much of an arc in the comics that I recall. But in the show, he ends up becoming mutated into the Fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Into the Fly mutant, which that's like what the action figure was and stuff like that. And my feeling is that was sort of like the dominant version of the character that stuck with people. And I think it had to do really with the toy, right? Yeah. Because like he had multiple appearances in the show as the Fly. And then so jumping ahead to the 2003 animated series, that's very good, but not a lot of people talk about it. So when Baxter pops up in that series, I recall everybody just sort of like just waiting and anticipating, like, when is he going to become the Fly? He's going to get turned into a Fly, right? Is it this episode? No. Okay, it's going to be the next episode. But they're building to this, right? He's going to be a Fly, right?
Right.
And it never happens. And really, what you get with him is like even kind of a much darker thing that happens. Tommy, you're the only one I think of us that watched this like with me, right?
Yeah, no, I remember it. I'm trying to think what they turned him into, but it was gross.
Right. So yeah, you never see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, for all of his failures, Shredder tortures him every time he fails at something.
Okay.
So every time you see him after effect, there's a part of him missing. Right? So like you see him at one point, he's got like an eye patch. And then the next time you see him, he's got like a robot arm. And then the next time you see him, right? He's got like a robot leg. And then like to the point where like he's a brain and an eyeball in a jar.
Yes.
Like hooked up to a computer. Like it is so dark.
I thought you were going to say he was going to be like Jeff Goldblum and like Brundlefly and like pieces of him are in the jars in his medicine cabinet.
Don't bring up the fly.
Yeah. Nah, basically it's like if Thanos went too far with Nebula, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But in fact, yeah. Oh my gosh, Shredder was worse than Thanos. Yeah, because he's basically a brain in a jar. But the end, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So he never becomes a fly in that show. But then the 2012 Ninja Turtles, he comes back, and is introduced pretty early, like like 5th episode or 6th episode of the first season. But he becomes the Fly, I want to say, by season 2.
Yeah, trajectory was the same.
Yeah.
I have one more.
Okay.
One that I think is that kind of gets overlooked because generally it's the same character all the way throughout. But again, a lot of what I think we know of the character comes later from their first appearance or their first outing. And that would be Wolverine.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking about Wolverine too.
That Wolverine first shows up. He's, in the yellow and blue, like spandexy superhero-y costume. Mm-hmm. And he's got the kitty cat whiskers.
Yep.
And there's none of the he's a mutant, he's a healing factor, he's the best there is at what he does isn't pretty. At that point, I think Len Wein didn't they didn't know for sure whether the claws were part of him or they were gloves.
Right. Yeah.
He said they were gloves.
Right.
I heard on a writer's panel. Len Wein said that like when he thought of the character, he thought that the gloves had the claws and it wasn't him. It wasn't a part of him.
Right, because I'd seen that there's a Claremont documentary that came out about Claremont's time with with X-Men over 30 years and stuff, and they get to the point of when they get to the basically all new, all different X-Men. He wanted to use Wolverine, but there was no real backstory on him, so he had to create all that stuff with Department H in Canada, and that he was the one that really decided to push for the idea of like, oh no. Every time these claws come out, they're coming out of him and it's wounding him. And he's like, their fans are going to eat this up because it's so, it's so weird and disgusting and cool at the same time that every time he pops his claws, no, it's making incision, it's bursting through his hand. So,
right.
It's one of these where he's sort of, it's sort of a thing where at the beginning he is, kind of, I guess more of a superhero secret agent kind of a thing. But not really. Like it's not, again, all the stuff I think that he eventually evolves into is because of the Miller and Claremont. Miller, the miniseries for sure gives us all like the Japan, the Japan stuff and Mariko and all that, even though she appears earlier in Claremont and Burns run, but I think a lot of the atmospheric stuff that we attribute to Wolverine doesn't come until much later.
Right. And I'm thinking about the opening of that Wolverine movie, which I swear I did not intend to come in to this episode and bring it up twice.
Okay.
I promise.
Okay.
But I am thinking of that intro where like you're seeing him like he's fighting in the Civil War and he's fighting in World War II and he's fighting like all of that stuff to me is I'm like, there's no way from that like giant size X-Men #1.
No.
Right.
No, of course not.
When he comes back that people were like, yeah, he's really, he's 120.
Yeah, he's like 200 years old or whatever. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. That's the other thing too, is the fact that there's no indication that that's what they thought of, when they introduced him. So that all comes along later.
I'm curious, would you guys put Venom into this group too?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
You would.
Yeah,
If you take it from the origin story from Secret Wars, where he literally finds a ball and it makes itself into a costume.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Sure.
Right.
The trajectory from that to what it is now in the movies, and that's on the far end of the spectrum. I'm not even saying I don't even know what they've done with the comics as far as
the King in Black and all that.
Yeah, the King. Yeah. Oh my God, that's still it too. Yeah, it's still progressing even to that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one, because Venom was, originally it was, I've got this grudge with Spider-Man, and because of something that Peter David storyline, it's one of those. No, I'd read a thing a couple days ago on Facebook that Ron Friends had posted about trying to get to the origin of who created Venom, and that there was some talk of they had a thing where you could design Spider-Man's new, like, it's kind of like someone sent in a costume design for Spider-Man's new costume, and it happened to be black and white, but it's not the Venom costume. It's not it at all. It's a totally different costume. But then the idea of like how the evolution of Venom becomes from, from being what he first is to like the Eric Larson's the one that attributes the tongue dripping with slime. That's his first thing. He's the one who came up with that. So it's again, it's a piecemeal step after step, evolution of the character to like Tommy was saying what it is now, where it's, they just had a big event with, all the King in Black and all the symbiotes and, all that stuff to the movie that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a big change from it.
That's probably why he was so, close to the front of my mind for that is the fact that the movie's out there. But I do think when I think about the character first, honestly, I kind of think of that, like him stalking MJ stuff to get at Peter, right? Mm-hmm. Like the really just his apartment just like, empty except like the weightlifting bench and like in like that all the photograph cutouts of Peter and Spider-Man like all plastered all over his wall, like like that's kind of what I think of Venom first.
Sure,
is that and then it's like and then you look at like the movie, and like certainly in the 90s when he was definitely anti-hero and you can play as him in like the Maximum Carnage video game and stuff like that, like
the Lethal Protector, Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, it starts off that way, and it's very much a much more personal thing, and it's a lot more, it's much more down to earth at that point. Even though this is an alien parasite from outer space, there is none of that. It comes from a planet of symbiotes. There's a whole, eventually a family thereof. When we talked about Maximum Carnage before, that you find out that there's more people, or Grace when I don't know. I guess we weren't talking about it. I guess we were talking about it before or after the one of the recordings. But the idea that Maximum Carnage is the start of all that stuff, with the idea of like there being a symbiote family kind of a deal.
Right.
But no, just the idea that when you take it past the fact that it's just vengeance to being way back out in outer space, it's amazing that the character is what it is now.
Oh yeah.
Right. I think kind of the commonality that we've sort of tripped over throughout this discussion is that like if you're in comics, it typically is like fan popularity,
right?
Yeah,
that's sort of the result of the character sticking around. It's sort of like having like these legs in a different direction. And if you're on a TV show, it's some kind of combination of like, wow, like you're really good on set or something, or like you brought something to the character that was not there on the page when they initially brought it out. And which I thought, like, really leading up to this episode, I thought that maybe there was going to be more diverse reasoning for these characters to sort of like have the life that they've had. And I'm kind of shocked that, like we didn't talk about like who we were going to bring up before the show. Like we're just kind of like throwing out who we had in our notes and stuff like that. And they're all kind of like falling in the same category. Like they're all like,
pretty
Harley
similar.
Quinn, really popular. Deadpool, really popular. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Wolverine, really popular.
Yep. We were saying at the top of the show that like that Batman had a lot of these, but Spider-Man's got a lot of these instances too, I think. And I think that, his may be a little bit different. Whereas I think that Spider-Man is one of the books that I can think of where like you actually got to see like progression of supporting cast and stuff like that. Like you really got to see like people have arcs that stuck, and not to say that other characters don't, but I mean it's Spider-Man kind of sticks out to me as like the gold standard for this. And like I think Harry Osborn is one of those too. We're like I doubt very much plans to have him as the Goblin when the character was first created.
Right.
But the time comes and that's where we're at.
At that point, they couldn't agree on who the Goblin was.
But no, let me say something back what Zach was saying. Sorry to interrupt you guys real quick.
No, good.
But Zach, I think you hit the nail on the head. But like, I was going back and reading the stuff with Batgirl, and DC legit retired the character in '88 with a comic. Hence, what gave Alan Moore his reign over it. But I think you hit the nail on the head because it reminded me and I just lost it. I was gonna say there's a character that came back. Oh my god.
Where are we going? Talk it out.
No, because you sparked it. And I was looking at through lines to see characters that legit people didn't care. And then all of a sudden they're thrown out there. And then made bigger than life because an editor didn't care about the potential of the character, but one guy had the idea. And Frank, you said it with Lobo, same thing. But oh my gosh, it was just in my head. I'm crying inside. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Looks like, sounds like.
No, but Frank, and Frank, when I bring it up to you, be like, yeah, that works.
Okay.
But think about a character that people had no potential in, and then it came back because someone like, hey, I got an idea for a character. Or my back of my head was Rogue, but something grander than Rogue came out as a comic book character. But think about a character that no one cares, and then it makes a triumphant resurgence. Another one is Captain Marvel. But oh my gosh, the more I'm thinking about what Zach said, it just opens the door for all these characters that saw resurgence just on your thought pattern alone.
Daredevil, maybe?
No, but he's almost there.
Animal Man.
He's almost there, right?
No,
I mean, the costume changes a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, but no, Animal Man's another one. A throwaway character that gets its reprise or beginnings based upon the concept, and it just flies forward. Oh my gosh, I'm at the. I'm so hurt. I'm so hurt because it just jumped in my head, and it's a fan favorite for Frank, and I can't for the life of me think about it.
We already said Wesley, so it's not him.
No, it's not. Yeah, I know, right? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Is it from Moonlighting?
No, it was a comic book character, and I just had it fresh in my head. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm crying inside.
Okay.
No, there's look. I mean, like what we said in this episode is just like the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a ton of characters that really, we could find that sort of like fit into these parameters as well. So if you listeners out there can think of any that we missed, certainly let us know in the comments or on Twitter. We're gonna start wrapping up, so we're gonna wrap up with we have our choice. So you can name a character that you would like to see evolve into something else from what they are now, or if you guys want, you can list a character that you think the evolution didn't work and you would like to see it revert back to what they originally created. So you pick one or the other, either or, whichever one you want. But first, if you like the show, you can check out all of our episodes on YouTube and letmeknowhowitis.com. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And finally, if you have any topic suggestions, send them our way, either on Twitter or in the comment section. Our Twitter handle is our show's initials, LMKHII. All right. So who wants to go first for either or?
I'll go first.
Okay.
The whole concept of Watchmen.
The whole thing?
Past Alan Moore.
Oh, okay.
I would have been fine if it was that and nothing else. Like, now mind you, I like what they did with the show, not the movie.
I was gonna say, you like the show though, right?
I love the show.
Okay.
But I did not care for what's the miniseries where they say that Dr. Manhattan? Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. Doomsday, okay.
Didn't care for Doomsday Clock.
I keep forgetting about that stuff. I thought you were going to be talking about before Watchmen and all that stuff.
Well, that too.
Mm-hmm.
It to me, it stands as a great one and done. I love the show, but every time they tried to add to it and incorporate it with the DC universe, it's just why? Mm-hmm. I was tired of it. Even when I invested the time to try and think they had a great idea, they didn't. Mm-hmm. It was just a lot of padding on something that was finely cooked, Yeah. It's like they oversalted the meal every time.
I don't think that it ultimately will have any real effect on the book's staying power, the original. Mm-hmm. But I do think, just my opinion, I feel that a large part of that book's success, outside of just the fact that it's amazing and well done, is the accessibility of it, that it's not about characters that appeared anywhere else. Even though, yes, they are like archetypes based off of the Charlton characters, I think the fact that they are new characters and not just the Charlton characters that have like this history of, 20 years, 30 years publication someplace else, I think makes the book a lot more easy for new people that may not even be in the comics, right? Mm-hmm. To get their head around and much more easily, like, here it is. And you can just hand somebody the volume. This is it. It's all of it. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Until about whatever 2008 right.
Yeah. But that's my decision. My choice.
Okay.
But the show is excellent.
The show is so good.
Yes.
Frank, how about you?
I do have one, and I don't particularly like what they've evolved the character into. And that would be She-Hulk.
Okay.
I don't currently like Jason Aaron's take on She-Hulk. I didn't mind the one out of Civil War 2 where Jen is going through the post-traumatic stress stuff after at the time Bruce's death. Obviously he got better because it's comics, but I think that I've read about it, like basically making her mindless and making her like every other Hulk practically doesn't really work for that character. I haven't really enjoyed it. Right. Usually I love Jason Aaron's stuff. I think he's a great writer. I just think this is not the best take for the character. And it's one of those things where I don't think we're going to get that at all when we get the Disney Plus show. I'm sure they'll.
I would assume
that they're not going. I mean, we might get a touch or like a nightmare sequence or a touch or a taste of it here and there, but overall, I think it'll be more along the lines of, again, that's another character that starts one way as a Savage She-Hulk, and then the one that I think everyone kind of resonated with was Byrne's kind of fourth walling, lawyer / superhero. So I think we'll get more of that when it actually comes out. But yeah, I just haven't enjoyed the current take, and I wish they'd revert her back to what she normally, what I know her as She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can't wait for that show, though.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that show. I'll jump ahead and say somebody that I'm sure I've said over the course of the show, but I'm going to say Tim Drake as somebody who needs to evolve to be something better. I love Tim Drake. I absolutely love him. And one of the things that I like about, as I've said in previous episodes, the Robin mantle is I like that it's kind of like your training wheels. And it's sort of like when you come into the Bat family, like everybody wears the Robin mantle and then they graduate to something else. And I don't know that was intentionally ever the idea, but I like that it just kind of worked out that way. And we have a lot of history on our side that says that that's sort of like, that's the way that this goes. The period where Tim Drake became Red Robin is very bittersweet to me, because on one hand, it is him graduating to his own identity, which I love, but I think the character deserves better than to give him a recycled Dick Grayson, right? Mantle from an Elseworlds that really has no bearing anywhere else other than the fact that it's a cool story and people like it.
Right.
And so Red Robin doesn't feel like the direction is nice, but it doesn't feel like the identity they should have landed on. And then
no.
And then when Bendis came on board and they and then gave him like Drake as his name, which I was like, okay, I'm like, I think you're in the same ballpark as me. We're like, you think he deserves better than Red Robin, but and I get that Drake is a bird, and I think that it's cool that there should be kind of like a bird motif in this, but like for it to be his last name, come on,
he needs a Josh.
Yeah,
right. And he needs a Josh, so
that would be his sidekick.
I always felt that that's what they should have named Jason, just to mark how he killed a lot, to make him Red Robin. That always made more sense to me. And I found it. Oh, and sorry to derail it again for the second time. I was thinking Winter Soldier, Bucky.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what's in my head. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's one that's evolved a lot.
Yes. That's what I was thinking. But going back to what Zach was saying, I agree with you with that character. I completely agree with you. He turned out to be the most promising. Then now he's the least cared about now. for no reason other than no one has sparked a good pathway for this character. No, I agree with you. 100%, Zach.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. So, okay, guys. So, like I said, if we forgot anybody, let us know in the comments or on Twitter. As always, we'll post links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com. Please remember to like us and follow us on social media, and we will see you guys next week. Have a good one.